Hello, my name is Kavita Melwani, and I'm a Master Certified Success and Business Coach with 2 decades of experience as an entrepreneur and almost a decade as a coach. I want to personally welcome you to the Soulful Entrepreneurs Club podcast, where my vision is to empower as many spiritually led businesses to run purposeful and profitable businesses aligned with their true selves. I want you to confidently and opulently shine your light without the overwhelm, the stress, or the burnout. Together, we will explore challenges that soulful entrepreneurs face and real implementable solutions so you can step into your unique purpose and shine. It is possible to bridge the success you already have with the truest, soulful, mystical parts of yourself. Are you ready to rise up as the leader you were born to be? Then join me, my soulful friends. The time is now for you to rise up and shine your light. The world needs you. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode. I am so excited to talk about something that I think that you probably know about, but it's good to hear again. And I've been seeing this pattern in my client sessions and have been reminded of this in my own life. So that's what I always share with you. And what that is the idea of the difference between what actually is happening and what our experience is of what is happening. And how separating those two things and working through our experience of an occurrence is the path to true emotional, mental, and spiritual freedom. And so I'm going to talk more about that today and also give you a couple of quick tools and things that you can do so that you can start that process for yourself. So what am I talking about? And maybe you know, but for those of you that don't, I want to talk in a little bit more detail. So things happen. Events happen, right? There could be events in your childhood. There could be events that just happened this morning, right? There are things that happen in our lives. And then those events are processed through our brain, through our senses, through our experiences. And then when we remember them, they are kind of colored through all those lenses. And then that becomes our experience of the event. Okay, and I'll give you something really simple to help you understand this. So let's say you see someone that you haven't met in a long time, and they say hi to you, but it feels kind of like they're in a rush or they really don't acknowledge you, and then they leave, okay? So if you look at that event with as much kind of separating the event from the experience, the event is you ran into a friend that you hadn't seen in a long time. Okay? The event in itself is just neutral and it's factually based. Now, your experience of the event could be many things. For some people, the experience is, wow, could be, wow, the thoughts of like, well, maybe she is not really happy to see me because she was in a rush. Or, maybe she's mad at me for something that I did. Or, I'm not sure if, I said the right things. Did I come across okay? So these are some of the thoughts that you may have and that experience of how you feel around the person. And then you interpret all of that and make assumptions. And then your experience of the event becomes something like this, perhaps. I ran into an old friend and she was in a rush. I talked to her quickly. I don't think our friendship's good anymore. And I think she might be mad at me for something I've done. And I've not done anything to her. So I don't know why she would be mad at me. I don't understand that. Okay, so do you see that? The difference between the experience, and then our interpretation. But it happens, this kind of interpretation of our events happens so quickly that we often don't even realize that it's happening. Okay. And so when we stop and we really step beyond it and allow ourselves to observe the whole scenario and separate the facts and the experience from our experience of the event, and then we can start to really look at it from an objective point of view, that's where the freedom comes. And so there are many ways that you can do this, right? So there are ways to process thoughts. That's a way to do it. And that a lot of mindset work can do that. One of the ones that I use with my clients is Byron Katie, the work, or the 4 questions. And I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to go check that out. It is something that she has some instructional videos on her website on how to use that. So I think it's a very helpful process. And in addition to that, if you go deeper, you know, and if it's a pattern of yours, for instance, to interpret people's responses, reactions to you as that you've done something wrong, or maybe they're mad at you, then we start to wonder what is underneath that being your interpretation of events. And this is where it's helpful, once you notice patterns, to do some work, deeper work. So this is where last week I talked about somatic coaching. So somatic coaching can be really helpful to uncover where this pattern is coming from. And even if you don't know the original place where it started, you can work through that. Then you could also do some other work if somatic doesn't work for you, but there are other ways to access the subconscious mind, because that's where the pattern is coming from. And that's the lens that you're looking through that is causing your interpretation and experience of the event to be seen that way. And so what can you do to shift your experience, right? It's one thing, and it's really important to do this as well, but to shift your interpretation later on, right? So you sit down, you do the work through those thoughts, and then you are able to reframe how you see the event and maybe even take an action, right? And so the example of the friend, it could be that you decide to reach out to the friend and check on them and maybe schedule a time for you to have coffee together, tea together, walk together, dinner, movie, whatever, right? And so but it's really difficult to come from that and come to that if you're worried about them being mad at you, right? So there is a lot of value to working through those thoughts and feelings. And then the subconscious work, working through the patterns over time, then your experience of the events become different. Your initial reaction might be, oh my gosh, she's mad at me. And then you catch yourself and you say, wait a minute, that comes from my conditioning of wondering if my parents were always upset or stressed and wanting to feel comfortable at home because they seemed stressed. And so I would always be on hyper alert to look at their facial reactions to see how they were doing, to make sure they were okay, because that's how I would feel okay. And then you stop yourself from interpreting it in that moment. And so that is freedom, right? So you're not tied into those stories that we spin about everything. Instead, you catch yourself and actually bring yourself to the moment in that experience and connect with the friend and notice that, oh, there's something that I'm being triggered here. I'm feeling like she might be mad at me. And maybe even in that moment, you could ask, are you okay? You know, or you could say, you know what, it seems like you are upset about something. And I don't know if I'm right, but I'd love to hear if you are. I'd love to support you. So like there's a different way of responding in that moment. Maybe then you also say, let's schedule a time to meet up, and you actually do it. I mean, how many times have we ran into someone and they're like, oh, we should meet up soon. And both people may or may not mean that they want to actually meet up soon, but then there's no follow-up, right? There's no like person reaching out and actually scheduling the meeting again. So it can change so many things in your life. This is just one small example about how when you separate an actual event and your experience of the event and start to work on those thoughts and feelings that happen from your experience, and then you do the inner processes to see what's underneath all those immediate thoughts, and it then changes your actual experience. And that is so freeing, right? When you're not caught in these like churning thoughts and the stories of life, and instead you can be more present in your relationships. You can be more present in what's actually happening in this moment. And you're not using the past to determine your future, but instead you're open to what could be possible for you in your relationships and in other aspects of your life. And so that's the value of separating those two things. So now I promised that I would give you one exercise, okay? And so my recommendation to you is in the next day or two, notice an event that happens and your interpretation of the event. And I'm going to invite you to sit down and to write down what your experience is of that event and see if you can separate the actual event from your experience. And then you can, if you like, download the work and work through that as best as you can on your own to shift your thought pattern and see how that changes. See if something opens, see what opens up for you, what possibilities open up for you, see what next steps open up for you, and take that step. Take that next step. So try it once. You don't have to take my word for it, right? Just try it once. See how that changes things for you, and then go from there. And of course, if you want support with this process, this is what I do with my clients. We do the work. We do not the work by Byron Katie. That was like a kind of like probably a Freudian slip, but we do that as just an aspect of it. But we really want to get to the core of the patterns so you can show up differently in your life. And so then the life responds to you differently as well. And your experience of life is different. So hopefully this is helpful. I'd love to hear from you if you have questions, if you've tried this and something comes up and something shifts for you, you can share that with me. I have a contact form in the show notes, so I will have a link to the work. I will have a link actually to last week's episode on somatic coaching. And also, if you want to connect with me and potentially work through something that came up for you. In the meantime, take good care. Bye.